The colony lights flickered again, which the hunter decided was either a sign of imminent system failure or an overdramatic attempt to build atmosphere. He leaned against the cold metal railing of the landing platform, watching as distant structures pulsed with uneven energy, like a heartbeat that had forgotten its rhythm. Somewhere out there, beyond the jagged horizon and the fields of fractured mineral spires, something had been killing livestock, disabling patrol drones, and, if the reports were to be believed, occasionally staring at people in a deeply unsettling manner. He had dealt with worse. He had also dealt with better, but no one ever paid for better. His ship's onboard intelligence chimed softly in his ear, its voice calm in the way only something incapable of panic could manage. Target movement detected. Probability of hostile organism, 92%. 92, he muttered, adjusting the strap of his rifle. What happened to the other 8%? It decided to take a vacation. Margin of error, the system replied. I hate margins, he said, stepping off the platform and onto the cracked surface of the colony's outer terrain. The ground gave a faint, hollow echo under his boots, as though the planet itself were quietly judging him. He ignored it. Planets, in his experience, were terrible conversationalists. The air shimmered faintly as he activated his tracking visor, overlaying the world with shifting data streams and predictive markers. Trails appeared where there should have been none, subtle disturbances in the environment that suggested something had passed through recently. Not a mindless creature, though. The patterns were too precise, too controlled. It moved like it knew it was being watched. Great, he sighed. A thoughtful monster, exactly what I wanted. He moved carefully, weaving between towering formations that caught and refracted the dim light into fractured spectrums. Every step felt deliberate, every sound amplified in the unnatural quiet. Even his breathing seemed too loud, as if the silence were daring him to break it. He checked his readings again. The target was close, closer than he liked. A sudden flicker in his visor made him pause. The trail split briefly, then corrected itself, as though the system couldn't decide what it was seeing. He frowned. You're not helping, he told the visor. Data inconsistency detected, the system replied. Obviously. He crouched, examining the ground manually. The marks were there, faint impressions, subtle disturbances, but they didn't match the reports. Too light, too careful. Not the chaotic destruction one would expect from a rampaging beast. He ran a hand over the surface, feeling the texture shift under his glove. This is wrong, he murmured. Clarify, the system prompted. I was promised something with claws, teeth, maybe a dramatic roar, he said. This looks like something that apologizes when it bumps into furniture. Before the system could respond, a distant sound cut through the silence. Not a roar. Not even close. It was softer, strained, like something trying very hard not to be heard. The hunter froze, every instinct sharpening at once. He adjusted his rifle, eyes scanning the narrow canyon ahead where the sound had originated. Target located, the system confirmed. Let's hope it's in the mood to be terrifying, he whispered, moving forward. The canyon walls rose around him, jagged and uneven, creating a natural corridor that funneled both sound and light into something almost claustrophobic. The air felt different here, denser, charged with a faint hum that prickled against his skin. His visor flickered again, struggling to maintain a stable read. Of course, he muttered. Now you break. He stepped deeper into the canyon, each movement slow and measured. The sound came again, clearer this time, a breath, uneven, labored. He reached the bend in the path and stopped. There was no creature. At least not the kind he had been expecting. She was pressed against the far wall, partially obscured by the fractured crystal formations. Her posture was tense, defensive, as though she had been trying to make herself smaller and failing. Her breathing was shallow, each inhale a visible effort. For a moment he didn't move, didn't even think. His mind simply refused to process what his eyes were telling him. She looked human. That was the first problem. The second was that she was. Not quite. Her ears, long, elegant, unmistakably inhuman, tilted slightly as she registered his presence. They caught the faintest sounds, twitching with a sensitivity that made his own senses feel dull by comparison. Her eyes locked onto him, wide but steady, carrying a depth that didn't belong to something described as a creature. The hunter raised his rifle automatically, the motion ingrained through years of habit. It felt heavier than usual. "Well," he said after a moment, his voice cutting through the silence with an almost inappropriate casualness, "this is not what I was promised." She didn't respond immediately. She just watched him, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and something else, resignation perhaps, as if this moment had been inevitable. "You're supposed to be," he gestured vaguely with the barrel of his weapon, "bigger. And you know, more teeth." Her gaze flickered to the weapon, then back to his face. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, strained, but undeniably clear. "And you're supposed to be less predictable." He blinked. "That's rude," he said. "I'm extremely unpredictable. Sometimes I even surprise myself." A faint, almost disbelieving exhale escaped her, not quite a laugh but close enough to count. It was such an unexpected reaction that it threw him off balance more than any attack could have. "You're injured," he observed, lowering the rifle slightly despite himself. "Very observant," she replied, her tone dry despite the effort it clearly took to speak. He hesitated, the weight of the situation pressing in on him. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. There was no clear line between hunter and prey here, no simple decision to make. Just a wounded figure who looked at him like he was both a threat and a question. "You're the one they sent me after," he said. "I gathered that," she answered. "They said you were dangerous." Her expression shifted, something sharp and bitter flickering beneath the surface. "And do I look dangerous to you?" He considered that, glancing at the faint tremor in her posture, the way she leaned subtly against the wall for support. Then he looked back at her eyes, steady and unyielding despite everything. "I don't know," he admitted. "I'm starting to think I was given very bad information." She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing something far more significant than his words. Then quietly she said, "That makes two of us." Somewhere in the distance, a low hum began to build, the unmistakable sound of incoming ships. The hunter's grip tightened on his rifle, his mind racing through possibilities, none of them simple. "Well," he muttered, glancing toward the sky he couldn't see from within the canyon, "this just got complicated." The hum above them deepened into a layered vibration that made the canyon walls quiver faintly, like the planet itself was reconsidering its life choices. The hunter tilted his head, listening, then sighed with a kind of tired disbelief. "Of course they're early," he muttered. "Professionals hate being late. It ruins the dramatic entrance." The woman didn't look up, but her long ears shifted sharply, tracking the sound with precision. "They're not early," she said quietly. "You're late." "That feels unnecessarily personal," he replied, glancing at her. "I came as fast as I could. There was a very uncooperative storm, and my ship insisted on not crashing." "That's the minimum expectation for a ship," she said. "You'd be surprised." The hum intensified, accompanied by faint pulses of light that flickered across the canyon walls. His visor, which had decided to partially recover its dignity, projected multiple incoming signatures. "3 ships," he said. "No, 4, because why not? Overachievers." "They won't hesitate," she said. "I've noticed that about people with guns," he replied, very committed to the concept. He glanced back at her, studying the way she held herself, the subtle tension beneath the exhaustion. She wasn't panicking. That was the unsettling part. Someone in her condition should have been desperate, but she seemed resigned. "That's a concerning level of calm," he said. "I've had practice," she answered. "Not the kind of hobby I'd recommend," he muttered. The hum shifted again, lower now, closer. Dust trickled from the canyon edges as distant engines displaced the air. He adjusted his grip on the rifle, then hesitated, looking at it like it had personally betrayed him. "This is the part where I'm supposed to make a decision," he said. She didn't respond immediately. Her gaze remained fixed on him, steady despite the growing noise above. "You already did," she said. He blinked. "I did." "You're still standing there," she replied, "talking. That's not a decision, that's procrastination with style. It's more than the others would allow." He glanced at the canyon entrance, calculating angles, distances, the time it would take for the incoming hunters to sweep the area. "Not long, definitely not long enough for philosophical debates. You said they won't hesitate," he said. "That implies you know them." "I know what they do," she answered. "That's enough." "That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth despite the situation. "You're very good at this," he said. "At what? Making everything sound worse." "I'm trying to be accurate." "Accuracy is overrated," he said. "I prefer optimism. It's less stressful." The ground trembled slightly as one of the ships passed overhead, its shadow slicing briefly across the canyon. He exhaled slowly, then made a face like someone about to do something deeply inconvenient. "All right," he said. "New plan." "You have a plan?" she asked, a hint of skepticism slipping through. "I have the concept of a plan," he corrected. "Details are optional." "That's not comforting." "It's not supposed to be," he said, echoing her earlier tone. He slung the rifle over his shoulder, which felt like a significant decision even if he pretended it was. Then he stepped closer, stopping just far enough to avoid looking like an immediate threat. "You can walk?" he asked. She shifted slightly, testing her weight. The movement was controlled, but the strain was obvious. "Yes," she said after a moment, slowly. "Perfect," he replied. "I love slow, it pairs wonderfully with being chased." Her ears twitched again, catching something he couldn't hear. "They're deploying drones." "Of course they are," he said. "Why wouldn't they be thorough?" He activated a small device on his wrist, and a faint distortion rippled outward, bending the light around them just enough to blur their outlines. "What is that?" she asked. "Something expensive," he said. "Try not to break it." "I'll do my best not to collapse on it," she replied dryly. "That would also be appreciated." Another tremor ran through the canyon, followed by a sharp, distant crackle of energy weapons testing the terrain. He winced. "They're enthusiastic," he said. "I admire that in a deeply concerning way." "You should go," she said suddenly. He looked at her. "That's an interesting suggestion, considering the circumstances." "You didn't come here for this," she continued. "You don't owe me anything." He tilted his head, considering her words. "That's true," he said. "I don't owe you anything." She nodded slightly, as if confirming something she already knew. "But," he added, "I also don't like being lied to. And someone somewhere decided to send me after a creature that turns out to be a person having a very bad day." Her gaze sharpened slightly. "That doesn't make it your problem." "It kind of does," he said. "I have a reputation to maintain. If I start eliminating the wrong targets, people will talk. It'll be embarrassing." Despite everything, a faint, incredulous expression crossed her face. "You're worried about embarrassment." "Constantly," he said. "It's my defining trait." A small drone zipped into view at the far end of the canyon, its sensors sweeping methodically across the environment. He froze, lowering his voice instinctively. "All right," he whispered. "Less talking, more not being found." She shifted closer to the wall, her breathing shallow but controlled. The distortion field shimmered faintly, struggling to keep up with the movement. The drone paused, hovering midair as if considering its life choices. Its sensors flickered over their position, then moved on. The hunter exhaled slowly. "See," he murmured, "flawless plan." "That was luck," she whispered back. "I prefer to call it tactical unpredictability." Another drone appeared, then another, their movements more coordinated now. The canyon was filling with them, a silent, mechanical search tightening around them. "We need to move," he said. She nodded, pushing herself away from the wall with visible effort. He stepped closer, offering support without making it obvious. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then accepted it. "Careful," he said. "I'm not as sturdy as I look." "That's disappointing," she replied. "I get that a lot." They moved slowly along the canyon, each step measured, each sound carefully controlled. Above them the ships continued their search, and around them the drones closed in. "Just out of curiosity," he said quietly, "is there a reason they're this determined?" "Yes," she answered. "Would you like to share it?" "No," he sighed. "I had to ask." A faint pulse of light swept across the canyon, closer this time. He glanced at his visor, watching the narrowing search patterns. "Well," he said softly, "this is where things get interesting." Her ears tilted toward him slightly. "Interesting is one word for it." "Dangerous, complicated, potentially life-threatening," he added. "But interesting sounds better." For a brief moment, despite the tension, there was something almost like a shared understanding between them, an acknowledgement of the absurdity of it all. Then another drone turned toward them, its sensors locking on with sudden precision. "Ah," the hunter said under his breath. "There it is, the part where the plan falls apart." The drone's sensors flared with a sharp, focused glow, and for a brief, uncomfortable moment, the hunter considered pretending to be a rock. He stood very still, which he felt was a convincing performance, though the rifle and the distinctly non-rock-shaped companion beside him might have weakened the illusion. "Well," he whispered, "this is awkward." The drone emitted a high-pitched signal, clearly unimpressed by his attempt at geological impersonation. Its alert pulsed outward, and somewhere above, the hum of the ships shifted in response. "Run," the woman said, her voice low but urgent. "Run is such an aggressive word," he replied, already moving. "I prefer strategic relocation under extreme pressure." They moved deeper into the canyon, the distortion field flickering as it struggled to keep up. Behind them, the drone surged forward, joined almost instantly by two others, their synchronized movements turning the narrow space into a trap. "Your plan is failing," she said between breaths. "My plan is evolving," he corrected. "Failure is just evolution with bad timing." A burst of energy struck the canyon wall near them, scattering fragments of crystal into the air. He winced as one piece bounced off his shoulder. "They're very enthusiastic about this," he muttered. "They think I'm dangerous," she said. "Do you want to explain why?" he asked, ducking as another shot carved a glowing line across the ground. She hesitated for half a second, then said, "Because I know something they don't want anyone else to know." He glanced at her. "That's usually a bad sign." "Yes, could have led with that," he added. "I wasn't sure you'd stay." "Fair point," he admitted. The canyon narrowed ahead, the path twisting into a sharp turn that blocked their line of sight. He slowed slightly, scanning the terrain, his mind racing through options that were rapidly decreasing in quality. "All right," he said, "new plan." "You've said that before," she replied. "Yes, but this one is worse, which means it might actually work." "That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be." He stopped abruptly, turning to face the approaching drones. The distortion field flickered and died with a soft hiss, leaving them fully exposed. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Buying time," he said, adjusting the settings on his rifle. "Also making questionable life choices." The drones advanced, their weapons charging with a rising hum. Above, the ships shifted position, preparing for a clear shot. "You can't fight all of them," she said. "I don't need to," he replied. "I just need to annoy them." He fired a controlled burst, not at the drones themselves, but at the canyon walls. The energy round struck precise Arabic noon, Arabic half, Arabic alif, Arabic tot, triggering a cascade of unstable reactions in the crystalline structures. The air filled with a sharp, resonant crack as the formations began to fracture. "That's a terrible idea," she said. "It's a creative idea," he corrected. The canyon responded violently. Cracks spread like lightning through the walls, and with a deafening roar, sections of the structure collapsed inward. The drones scattered, their formations breaking as debris filled the space. "Now we run," he said. "That's the same plan," she pointed out. "Yes, but now it's justified." They moved again, faster this time despite her condition. The collapse bought them seconds, maybe a minute if they were lucky. He could hear the drones recalibrating behind them, their pursuit relentless. The path opened suddenly into a wider chamber, the ceiling fractured but stable enough to hold, for now. In the center of the space stood a structure unlike anything else on the planet, smooth and metallic, its surface pulsing faintly with a rhythm that felt almost alive. The hunter slowed, staring at it. "That's new," he said. "It's not supposed to be here," she replied. "That's comforting." She stepped forward, her expression shifting as she looked at the structure. For the first time, something other than exhaustion and tension crossed her face, recognition. "What is it?" he asked. "A relay," she said. "A transmitter." "For what?" She hesitated, then said, "For the truth." He blinked. "That sounds suspiciously important." "It is," she replied, "and it's why they're hunting me." The hum of the ships grew louder as they closed in, their patience clearly exhausted. "You're telling me," he said, "that this entire situation is because you have information and this thing can broadcast it?" "Yes. And they don't want that to happen." "No." He looked at the structure, then back at the canyon entrance where the drones were already reappearing. "Well," he said, "that explains a lot." He stepped toward the relay, glancing at her. "Can you use it?" "Yes," she said, though her voice carried a note of strain. "Then we should probably do that," he replied, "before our very persistent friends arrive." She moved to the structure, her hands hovering over its surface. The device responded instantly, its light intensifying as it recognized her presence. "What happens when you activate it?" he asked. "It sends everything," she said. "Records, data, evidence, to every colony in range." He let out a low whistle. "That's going to make you very unpopular." "I already am," she replied. The drones entered the chamber, their weapons locking onto them. The hunter raised his rifle, positioning himself between her and the incoming threat. "Take your time," he said. "I don't have time." "Then take less time." A burst of energy slammed into the ground near him, forcing him to shift position. He fired back, precise and controlled, keeping the drones at bay. "You know," he called over his shoulder, "this is not how I usually spend my jobs." "What do you usually do?" she asked, her hands moving rapidly across the relay. "Less thinking," he said. "More shooting." "That sounds simpler." "It was," he admitted. The relay pulsed brighter, its hum rising to a steady, powerful tone. "It's ready," she said. "Good," he replied, "because I'm running out of clever ideas." She pressed her hand firmly against the surface, and the chamber filled with light. A wave of energy surged outward, passing through the walls, the canyon, the sky above. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. Then the ships reacted. Their formations broke, signals scrambling as the broadcast reached them. The drones hesitated, their coordination faltering. "What did you send?" he asked. "The truth," she said again. He glanced at the drones, watching as their movements became uncertain, their directives conflicting. "I like the truth," he said. "It's very disruptive." The immediate threat dissolved into confusion. The ships above began to withdraw, their presence fading as quickly as it had appeared. The hunter lowered his rifle slowly, the tension draining from his posture. He let out a long breath. "Well," he said, "that worked better than expected." She leaned slightly against the relay, her strength clearly fading now that the danger had passed. "You stayed," she said quietly. He shrugged. "I told you, I don't like bad information." "That's not the only reason." He considered that, then smiled faintly. "No," he admitted, "it's not." She looked at him, her expression softer now, the sharp edges of distrust easing. "What will you do now?" she asked. He glanced toward the sky, now quiet and empty, then back at her. "I suppose," he said, "I'll have to rethink my career. Maybe add protecting people I wasn't supposed to find to my list of services." "That's a long title," she said. "I'll shorten it," he replied. "Marketing is important." A faint, genuine smile appeared on her face, brief but unmistakable. The hunter looked around the chamber at the remnants of the chaos, the silent relay, the absence of pursuit. "Well," he said, "this was definitely not what I signed up for." "No," she agreed. He adjusted the strap of his rifle, then extended a hand to her. "Come on," he said. Let's get you somewhere that doesn't involve being hunted." She hesitated for a moment, then took his hand, steadying herself. "All right," she said. Together they moved toward the canyon's exit, leaving behind the place where everything had changed. For the first time in a long while, the hunter wasn't sure what came next, and for once he didn't mind.